Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Good Thursday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this 9th of June. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information for any part of Alaska by going to weather.gov/Alaska. As I've been telling you for a large part of the week and the week before, the websites are going to be changing here. And if you'd like to see what that looks like, head to youtube.com/NWS Anchorage. And we have some videos there that will guide you through at least a few of the changes that you should expect to see, but you can test them out now if you go to w2.weather.gov/AFC. And point and click around there. It'll work for any part of Alaska, but specifically for south central and southwestern Alaska. And the changes will be happening for the entire state as well. But use that and try and find your information, and then you'll want to re-bookmark everything if you've got it saved on your phone, saved on your computer, wherever you like to get your weather information from online. Make sure that on or after July 6th you reset that, because things are going to change and operate a little bit differently than you're used to, but we think it'll be better. If it's not, tell us why so we can get to work on that and make it right for you. The weather info line is open at 800-472-0391. Find us on Facebook, NWS Alaska. Find us on Twitter using the hashtag AKwx, that's short for Alaska Weather, of course, and as I talked about on YouTube. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your daily afternoon map briefing, and we would have already talked about this if you would have heard that on the radio or online or on YouTube. You can certainly get that information. Here's a look at Dead Horse. And this was about an hour or so ago at the airport. They're looking southward from our friends over at the FAA and their webcams from all over Alaska. Love that resource. If you haven't checked it out, find some of the cameras and sneak a peek around any part of Alaska you like to see. But this is what it looked like. That was snow, and that is certainly fresh snow on the ground. The forecast for Dead Horse over the next several days does have it warming back up as temperatures go back above freezing at nighttime, but notice that daytime temperatures, I guess it's all daytime right now, isn't it? I have to use the correct terminology, but afternoon temperatures will be in the mid-40s to about 50 degrees by Saturday. So temps are coming back up as winds start to swing around, and you'll see that in the marine weather forecast here, as well as the high and low temperatures in just a minute. But in the meantime, as you know, the snow is falling there, and for many on the North Slope, especially east of the Dalton Highway and north of the summits, a winter storm warning is in effect. That will start here in a little less than an hour now. So 6 o'clock is when we say the warning begins, and that'll go until noon tomorrow. Looking for as much as 3 to 8 inches of snow in some cases there. That's going to slow travel down on the highway, of course, as the trucks get out there and trying to manage some of that. It's probably going to be a pretty wet, sloppy snow. Temperatures have been pretty warm, and there's a lot of moisture there, so it's not going to be the fluffy stuff that just blows away very easily. It'll probably be a little bit on the wetter side. So watch for that winter storm warning again. That goes until noon tomorrow. For the Copper River Basin, a red flag warning is in effect. What does that mean to you? Well, if you're a fire manager, that should get your eyebrows up a little bit. That means conditions are dry, it could be a little windy, and there could be some thunderstorm activity in the region. So fire danger is elevated in that region. We've got that marked here. You'll notice that high zone painted on here all the way through the Copper River Basin, up through the passes and into the upper Tanana Valley, as well as parts of the lower and middle Yukon Valley, just west of McGrath, and through many of our southwest villages, as well as parts of the interior of the Seward Peninsula and the Noatak and Kobuk valleys there, also looking at some higher than normal fire danger. So precipitation certainly needed. One thing that we don't want to see is a whole lot of thunderstorm activity, and tomorrow we could see at least some of that firing up around the Copper River Basin for tomorrow, so elevating the fire danger there. Here's a look at the visible satellite picture, and notice all the dry air there letting the sunshine hit the snow white caps of some of the Wrangell St. Elias range as well as parts of southeast. A lot of dry air out across the northern and eastern Gulf, a sign that high pressure is in control, but this big swooshing swirl of clouds across the Aleutians is a sign that low pressure is trying to kind of rough that up a little bit. As that moves to the north and to the east, it starts to invade on that region of high pressure across the Gulf. We're going to see more clouds across south central. Southwest is already picking up more of that cloud cover. But the result of sunshine across south central and southeast today has been very mild temperatures, and hopefully you've enjoyed that. Probably one of the warmest to come for the next several days for many in southwest or in south central, and probably get another mild day there in southeast. Now for the interior, things have been pretty dry for the lower and middle Yukon Valley out toward the Seward Peninsula. Notice, though, that the Bering is pretty unsettled. A lot of cloud cover out there. Not a very vigorous low pressure system. The winds are going to switch around to more of a north and westerly direction as we get into Friday and Saturday. And precipitation's really going to focus on south and western Alaska, probably looking at some thunderstorm activity here into the evening hours. We've been noticing a lot of lightning strikes there around McGrath and eastward, and that will gradually march northward as we go through the nighttime hours. Here's the infrared satellite picture. And this is going to give us a little bit better view of what's going on across the north slope. You can see the position of the low pressure system here, and that frontal boundary that's working in from the north and west is just that first wave. There is already one that's made it considerably further south, and that's where these clouds are lined up along. Showers and thunderstorms have been popping up there over the last couple days, mostly shower activity and cloud buildup. Thunderstorms have been focused a little bit more out across the Yukon, but another wave of colder air is dropping in tonight, and one behind that will come in just a matter of days. So this is a process that's going to continue as there's a lot of cold air aloft across the Arctic Ocean right now. Low pressure down across the Pacific Northwest, and then obviously a very large low across the North Pacific. So as we go ahead in time, you'll notice clouds continuing to build along that boundary here across the middle Tanana Valley in the upper Yukon. We have low clouds and precipitation working in across Norton Sound in southwestern Alaska. And we have the low up across the Arctic coast. That's the one that's creating the snow across the parts of the northern Brooks Range and mainly the eastern side of that and east of Dalton Highway up through the coastal plain. So a lot going on in all parts of Alaska today. There's a cold front out across the Chukchi Sea. We've got another wave of cooler air. It's not really that cold anymore. That has pushed its way down to the Alaska Range and then wraps into low pressure out around St. Paul and St. George at 1,001 millibars. Again, not very strong, is it? Just not a very vigorous low pressure system, but it's enough to keep the clouds going across the Aleutians. There's some spotty areas of rain or drizzle across the chain as usual. And then just west of Sitka, we have low pressure at 1,008 millibars. High pressure, though, making itself known with that dry air. You can see that cut out here, the visible satellite picture. And just beautiful weather for parts of the Copper River Basin today in Glen Allen, all the way down through the Cook Inlet, Kenai, Homer, and Prince William Sound, all the way out towards Sitka and Gustavus. Just a gorgeous day, just about any way you cut it. Tonight's weather, well, a little different there up across the north, isn't it? Look for areas of snow, and it's probably going to be the heaviest tonight through the evening hours into very early tomorrow morning. So it should come down pretty hard and heavy for a while. Again, for the northeastern Brooks Range, generally north of the summits and east of the Dalton Highway there. It's no longer for the eastern Beaufort Seacoast. So Kaktovik and Flaxman Island, you're not talking about getting the highest accumulation now at this point. That's going to be a little bit further toward the hills. Tonight, high pressure will set up across the Chukchi Coast and start to push its way into Kotzebue Sound. And along that ridge, the wind should start to settle down a little bit as they change direction and then slow down. Look for areas of clearing sky underneath the high pressure ridge here for Prince William Sound and South Central. But a look to the south and west, down past the volcanoes, you're going to notice clouds building in with showers developing there as you head up toward the Kachemak Bay region, down into Kodiak Island, Marmot Island, and then south and west, a better chance for more steady rainfall across the central and eastern chain. For southeast, maybe a few showers, maybe a few more clouds across the region, but by and large, it's going to be a pretty quiet night for you, and it looks like a fairly quiet day as well for Friday, so not too bad in the capital city. Out across Prince William Sound, dry conditions tomorrow, but clouds are going to be building in from west and southwest. As that happens and the heat of the day is still upon us, there might be some quick showers developing over the mountains there, so keep that in mind as you're making your afternoon plans. You might even see some convection or perhaps even some thunderstorm activity closer to the higher terrain northward. Let's say Denali in the Alaska Range. Right now we're not expecting a whole lot of thunderstorm activity around the Kenai Peninsula. Out west, unsettled conditions continue around St. Matthew at 999 millibars. There's a low pressure system south of the chain at 1001 millibars. And that steady southerly flow is grabbing Pacific moisture and just kind of spreading it around a little bit in southwest. Notice what's happening up across the north slope, all the way down past the Brooks Range now into the upper Yukon Valley. On the south side of that is where we're getting the warm air, and all of this is lifting, turning into showers and sometimes thunderstorms. But north of that, the cool air has settled in, but it's now running into enough warm air and kind of mixing up a little bit that it's not just snow, but it'll probably be periods of rain and snow. Starting off with snow in the morning, that intensity is going to let up, and then we'll start to see the rain settle back in. Offshore, it may still be cold enough for some snow and fog as you head north from Kaktovik and east toward the center of that low pressure system, but already on the west side of this, warm air is building in, and it will try and move itself eastward over the next several days. And you'll see that wind shift probably as we get into Saturday, so you'll probably get some warmer weather there. But already there's another cold front coming in with this weather pattern. So across the Chukchi coast, brace yourselves for another round of something a little more winter-like, I guess. As we look at the central and the upper Yukon Valley, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms will be possible again for Saturday. Southward, a better chance for some light rain and shower activity around the Parks Highway and Susitna Valley, and down into Prince William Sound, a better chance for steadier rainfall, and that may continue into southwest Bristol Bay, looking showery as we get into Saturday, and the same goes for the central and eastern Aleutians. Dutch Harbor and Unalaska looking at some low clouds with low pressure just to your east. That means more of an onshore north and westerly flow likely into the bay. Low pressure across the central Gulf at 1015 millibars. Southeast still looking pretty nice there. You'll see a few more clouds. Probably looking at a few areas of light rain across the mountains, but by and large, dry weather continues for you as you start up the weekend with high pressure just south of St. Lawrence Island. Watch for areas of fog, of course, with that, and low stratus as we get into the weekend for the Bering Sea. Here's a look at temperatures in southeast. Remember, I said it was nice. Look at Haines and Skagway in the lower to mid 70s. Wow, that must have been warm today. 53 in Sitka, not quite as warm there. The capital city in the mid 60s, 50s and 60s for southern southeast. Ketchikan and Annette Hyder at 59. 79 in Yakutat today. Prince William Sound saw temps in the upper 60s for Valdez and Cordova. Around Portage it was 59, 65 in Seward, 57 in Homer today. In Kenai, low 60s, not too bad at 2 o'clock I should say, and 71 around Wasilla. Talkeetna was 70 degrees, a little bit further towards Skwetna, 72. Fairbanks, early afternoon 59, 67 in Eagle, and 57 in Fort Yukon. Looking northward, you see 30s and 40s around the Brooks Range. Where's the cold front? Well, just draw a line right about here. As that drops southward, you can see how those temperatures change a little bit there. And then remember, we have another surge of that colder air working in. Around the Arctic coast, temps are in the 30s. Out ahead of that, though, you can see in northern parts of Yukon, temps were in the lower to mid 40s out ahead of that front. So certainly some changes there. 50 in Nome, 49 in Unalakleet, 52 in Galena today. McGrath was showing 64 in the early afternoon. Nunivak Island was in the upper 40s, 37 in Gamble and St. Lawrence Island. And southwest around Bristol Bay, mid 50s for you. Around the coast and southwest, temps were in the 40s and low 50s. The Alaska Peninsula, generally around 50 degrees, maybe a little bit warmer as you head up toward Port Hayden. 50 in Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, 48 for St. Paul, 46 in Etka and Shemya showing 46 as well. 61 beautiful degrees in Kodiak. Hopefully you didn't turn into a crispy critter today. Upper 40s and lower 50s for southeast overnight. South central in the upper 40s, including Kodiak at 45. The middle Tanana Valley in the upper 40s. The north slope will stay at or even below the freezing point tonight. Warmer nights are ahead for you, or warmer overnight periods. What do you say when the sun stays up all night? I don't know what to call that. 42 in Nome. Southwest looking at temps in the mid to upper 40s. Around McGrath closer to 50. Southwest looking at temperatures in the lower to mid 40s, and 42 in St. Paul with a high of 48 to 49 tomorrow. Around Fairbanks, 72 degrees. Some of the warmest weather probably from the middle Tanana Valley up into the upper Yukon, including Eagle at 75. South Central in the mid 50s in the higher terrain to the mid 60s, closer to the lower terrain at Anchorage, Talkeetna, Wasilla, and Palmer, all included in that. Glen Allen will be warm as well, near 70. 55 in Kodiak, and upper 50s to mid 60s for a large part of southeast, including Juneau, probably looking at about 66 tomorrow. 40s and 50s for the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. St. Paul at 49. Now, your flying weather shows IFR conditions across the north slope tomorrow, obviously with snow falling there around Nunivak Island out toward the west and Kiska, as well as Kodiak Island and the eastern Gulf as that shifts eastward tomorrow. Watch for IFR conditions mainly offshore. Southeast looking pretty good through most areas, and widely scattered storms are possible. IFR conditions should ease up across the north slope as we get into the afternoon. Pass conditions look pretty good for Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass tomorrow. We're going to say VFR, but looking northward, you're going to find snow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass turning over to MVFR with the convection developing in the afternoon. Probably some showers in the region. Rainy Pass, though, looking dry. VFR conditions there. Windy Pass, also VFR. Watching for storms around Isabel Pass. VFR expected. And Mentasta Pass, looking for visual. Same goes for Tenita Pass tomorrow. We're going to call that green. And Portage Pass, visual flight rule is expected there. Chilcoot and White Pass, we expect to see that starting at MVFR with improvements had fairly quickly into the midday hours. Freezing levels show the cold air dropping southward, but you'll notice that the hot air is still in place across the Yukon and the upper Yukon Valley and certainly into the middle Tanana Valley and the Copper River Basin. We also have a cool pool of air west of St. Matthew and north of Kiska and Attu with levels there as low as 2,000 feet or even lower. Watch for that to change as we go into the next couple of days. The icing potential above 2,000 feet for the north slope. Most of that's going to be light, isolated, moderate at worst. You'll see some hit and miss icing potential there above 7,000 feet from St. Lawrence Island southward toward Adak and above 8,000 to 9,000 feet a little bit further east in the Bering and above 9,000 feet for south central. Not looking at any substantial impacts across southeast tomorrow. The jet stream has our powerful wave of weather still focused out across the northern Pacific with wind speeds picking up to 130 knots. That's pushing moisture northward into southwestern Alaska and returning that back around to the Bering. So kind of keeping this right here in place. High pressure sitting across the central and northern Pacific, and again that's helping to push warmer weather northward and then refocusing some of that out across the Pacific Northwest. Where's our snow coming from? This northern wave here is helping to move that along the north slope with wind speeds at about 30,000 feet, running around 90 knots or so from the west-northwest. At 9,000 feet, you can see the impacts of that coming in from the west-northwest at 25 to 45 knots. Low pressure south of St. Paul and St. George and north of Adak and Atka is driving in more of a southerly flow across Bristol Bay and the southwestern Capes at about 15 to 30 knots, 40 knots over the chain. And southerlies continue for most of the Gulf with wind speeds somewhat light. A little bit further east, you can see the impacts of high pressure starting to bend those winds a little bit in from the west. And similar conditions at 3,000 feet. A lighter flow here at 15 to 20 across the north slope. Light winds coming in from the south for south central and southwest, about 10 to 15. And northerlies out across the western Bering. Meanwhile, southeast, you're looking at west and northwesterly winds coming in gently at about 10 knots there as we go through the daytime tomorrow. Turbulence, we'll watch for some chop around the Brooks Range tomorrow as that frontal boundary is kind of oozing over. Around 4,000 feet and below is where you might find that, and also across the western Aleutians as well as the eastern chain and the southern tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Things look quiet in southeast, south central, and for most of the interior as well, but watch out for growing clouds and eventually a few showers and storms. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with the rest of your marine weather and an update on the sea ice edge in just a few.
Daystar Day and the honeymoon. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regis, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory. It's that time of year again where we encourage stargazers everywhere to celebrate Daystar Day.
That's right, Dean. We're nearing the summer solstice, and all you have to do is just get up before dawn and experience the rising of the closest star to the Earth. A star so huge we could fit over 1.25 million Earths inside it.
Plus, this year we have an added treat. The full moon occurs on the same day as the summer solstice. This full moon is known as the honeymoon because it travels so close to the southern horizon that at extremely northern latitudes it maintains a golden color, almost like honey.
What are we talking about? Let's show you. It sounds simple enough, but few people ever pay close enough attention to the rising of the only star we can see in the daytime to ever really experience it. We call the star the sun, but on Stargazers we occasionally refer to it as our day star.
For the past 2 years, the summer solstice occurred on the weekend, making our Daystar Day celebrations easy to do. However, this year it occurs during the week. For those of us on the east coast of the United States, the summer solstice occurs at precisely 6:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday evening, June 20th.
Therefore, it might be a challenge to fully participate in our Daystar Day sunrise experience on the actual day of the summer solstice. So we suggest experiencing the sunrise the weekend before the summer solstice on Saturday, June 18th or Sunday, June 19th.
Now, I'll bet that some of you are thinking that we're talking about a sunrise and that you've seen thousands of them. But even though you may think you've seen thousands of sunrises, very few people have ever taken the time to completely experience what's happening all around them.
Sunrise involves a complex series of steps as night slowly turns into dawn and then finally into day. If you follow our simple instructions, you'll experience one of the grandest events in nature, which most people ignore.
To participate, here is all you have to do. Simply get up on the day you've chosen while it's still dark out, about 15 minutes before dawn begins. Whether you live in the heart of a city or out in the country, it makes no difference because it's not the sun itself you're going to observe, but the effects of sunrise on everything around you as your part of the world slowly turns from night into day.
It's better to be outside, but if you can't go outside, just sit by an open window. Now for the rules, which are absolutely essential. No internet, no television, no doing your normal wake-up routine. All distractions must be eliminated.
Simply sit quietly, inside or outside, and when you see the sky slowly start to brighten, look, listen, and feel what happens all around you. Watch the delicate interplay of light, color, and shadow.
However, sunrise is more than visual. Also, listen, and you'll hear the sounds of our world and its creatures waking up. You'll feel the wind change, the temperature change, and much, much more.
If you do get outside before dawn on Tuesday, June 21st, you'll surely notice the full moon setting in the west. This is a particularly great timing for the full moon because with the sun being at the summer solstice position on the celestial sphere, the full moon will be on the opposite side of the celestial sphere in the sun's winter solstice position.
What this means is that by using the moon as a celestial placeholder, you'll get to see a preview of the sun's location in the sky on December 21st. So, let's quickly set our skies up for sunset on Monday, June 20th, facing east. You'll see a brilliant full moon rising south of east in the constellation Sagittarius.
As the night passes, you'll notice the moon stays very low in the southern sky, and people at extremely northern latitudes may notice the moon has a golden hue to it all night long. Therefore, this full moon is called the honeymoon.
So, happy Day Star Day, my friends, and remember to keep looking up.
We should invite our stargazing friends up to Alaska, shouldn't we? Let them experience what it looks like when the sun doesn't set all the way. Here's a look up north and the sea ice edge, and something to keep in mind, especially if you're around Barrow or Point Barrow and maybe even around Prudhoe Bay and west, that a lot of this ice could be multi-year ice. So if you're looking for some fresh water, that might be a consideration, but keep your safety in mind as a lot of this is going to be shifting around and is unstable. Thanks to the shifting winds over the course of the next several days here. So a lot of this, again, could be some multi-year ice working its way closer to the coast. Out across the west, melting continues across the Chukchi coast. A lot of open water there, and of course across the eastern Beaufort Sea. Not so much right along the coast at this point. Here's a look down south. Across southeastern Alaska, winds are going to be pretty light except in the Lynn Canal. Southerlies there at 20 knots with a 4-foot sea. Everywhere else, light winds around 10 knots. Seas around 2 to 3 feet on the inside, 4 to 5 feet on the outside. Generally a south and southwesterly flow for Friday, becoming more of an onshore flow on Saturday. Still light, 10 to 15, around 5 knots there on the coast. And across the inner channels, 15 to 25 generally from the south, 3 to 4, even 5-foot seas as you head further north, 25 knots in the Lynn Canal as we head into Saturday. Across south central, winds are going to be pretty light except for around Kodiak Island, more of a 15 to 20 knot wind there on either side, 4 to 6-foot seas there. In Cook Inlet, 10 knot winds with a 3 to 4-foot sea. Winds are light and variable across the northern Gulf and inside of Prince William Sound with a 2-foot sea. For Saturday, more of a southeasterly flow. Winds are still light across the western Gulf, 15 to 20 knots there, and across the Cook Inlet, 15 to 20 knots. 4-foot seas west of the Barrens and in Kamishak Bay. Winds are coming in from the south around Cook Inlet, past Kenai and Clam Gulch, looking at 15 knots with a 2 to 3-foot sea on Saturday, looking pretty good. For Friday, a 10 to 20 knot wind there across the Bering Sea. Inside of Bristol Bay, 4-foot seas, southwesterlies on the Pacific coast from Kodiak Island all the way down towards Sand Point and King Cove. For Saturday, well, not much of a change there across the Pacific coast, but 15 knots is expected to blow in from the south with a 3-foot sea for Bristol Bay and from Port Hayden all the way down to Cape Sarashef. As we get into Friday in the Aleutians, look for a southerly flow across Nikolsky and Unalaska, 5 to 8 foot seas there, north and westerly winds from Atka to Adak, and 25-knot winds from Kiska to Attu with a 9-foot sea expected. For Saturday, a little bit more of a uniform westerly flow for everyone. Southwesterlies across the eastern Aleutians, 15 to 20 knots, and 8-foot seas are expected south of Nikolsky and Unalaska. Look for 9-foot seas, some of the higher seas there on this chart, between Nikolsky and Atka on Saturday. For the west coast, northeasterlies will be a little strong across St. Lawrence Island, 7-foot seas there at 30 knots. Otherwise, southerlies across the Kuskokwim Delta at 20 knots with a southerly flow for St. Paul and St. George with a 5-foot sea. Northerlies oppose that around St. Matthew with a 25-knot wind on Saturday, becoming light and variable as we get into Saturday. Look for a kind of a light flow around the Pribilofs, and southeasterlies coming up the southwestern capes at 10 knots with a 3-foot sea. Southerlies return across St. Lawrence Island with a 3-foot sea on Saturday as well. Now for the north slope, look for winds to come out of the west and northwest. Northerlies down from Cape Lisburne all the way down into Kotzebue Sound at 20 knots. North and westerly flow will be considerably stronger though across the eastern Beaufort Seacoast, 25 knots with a 5-foot sea in the open waters, higher gusts and freezing spray. So keep that in mind if you're venturing out. And again, if you're going out in the water, a lot of that ice could be shifting around and do so fairly quickly without a whole lot of notice. So keep your eyes on that and be ready. South and westerly flow across the Chukchi coast, 15 knots around Point Lay to Wainwright. Southerlies blowing off of Barrow, and south and easterly winds for the central and eastern Beaufort Seacoast at 15 knots as we go into Saturday. Stay safe out there. Here's a look at the weather map one more time. A winter storm warning goes into effect at 6 o'clock for the northeastern slopes of the Brooks Range east of Dalton Highway. We're looking for 3 to 8 inches of snow there, and a lot of that's going to come down tonight and overnight as colder air drops southward quickly, but it will warm up quickly tomorrow as we get into the afternoon and evening, and Saturday things will improve. South and west you're looking at rain and some showers as we get into Saturday, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms across the Yukon Valley for tomorrow and Saturday. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.